Hey team, Oscar here, and thanks for listening to another episode of our Run Spesh podcast. This week, Tom and I caught up with Laura Nagel. Laura is an elite distance runner here in New Zealand and is just back from the World Indoor Champs, which were held in China. Laura was very open with us as she talked through beginning her running journey, heading off to the US, and the challenges she faced when she came home. Laura is an integral part of the sport, not only just at a competitive level, but also at a social level, making sure that everyone feels welcome. Hope you enjoy listening to this episode. Laura was a wealth of knowledge. Laura, welcome to the Run Spesh podcast. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
No worries at all.
Yeah, so today we have on a we're racking up the guests.
We're doing okay.
We're doing all right. I feel like we're tackling the top dogs first in the world of running in New Zealand. But today we have Laura Nagel, born in Napier, lives in Auckland, is coached by Paul Hamlin and has been running for almost 20 years now.
Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah.
So Tom's only just basically 20, so
Yeah.
I think that makes us old, mate.
It's funny you say that because I saw there was like an article the other day, kind of before I went to Worlds about me making the team, and it was a Hawke's Bay article, and someone had commented, "Oh, she's been waiting just as long as Sam Ruth has been born." I was like, "Great, thank you."
Ouch!
I just feel like we don't have to race the kid. Just get smoked by him every weekend.
I will never step back on the tartan after that. No. So hey, we've got an awesome episode kind of planned, and like we were chatting about before we started recording, we don't want to make it all about Laura the runner. We want to understand Laura as the person, and I guess and what I'm reading here, the massive contribution that you make to our sport, and how I guess some of your views on that and how athletes can lead not only competition, but also organising stuff in the background. So I wanted to kick things off with a little message here from Paul Hamlin, your coach, and then we'll kind of crack into it. In full fairness, I've hardly ever talked to Paul. I didn't know he was going to write me a novel. I might be able to get through most of it, but we kind of want to get out of here for lunch as we're all athletes. So we'll see how we go. So this just sets the scene for Laura. Laura is such a great girl, a real leader and instigator of the Bays Babes training group and other squad activities. She is super organised and efficient, and over the past 3 years has basically arranged and coordinated the squad training camp to Rotorua for the Runaway 5K and New Zealand Mile Champs. To add to this, the night games was solely organised and facilitated by Laura, which was a huge success. I'm sure she can explain last year's challenges. So it sounds like you're motivated as an athlete, but also motivated about getting other people involved as well.
Yep, absolutely. I think what I've learned in the many, many years, as you pointed out, that I've been running is I just think not really necessarily about the running. It's literally all the people that you meet along the way. And being able to do that, I think, especially over the last 4 years, if I didn't have that group and the people in it, I probably wouldn't be running. It just wouldn't be fun. I'd like to make it fun. I also like to, probably over the last few years, like life just shouldn't be that serious. Obviously there are times where you do need to take it kind of serious or, go for things that you want to, but it doesn't need to be that serious. So I just like to make sure that we have a lot of fun when we're doing what we're doing. It's hard work. Like you've got to have those really cool, enjoyable moments, and making it a bit more than something other than running is probably a big thing that I like to do with our group. Hence the games on that game night. So yeah.
So that kind of sets the scene for who Laura is now. But I guess let's start from the beginning. You're born in Napier. How did the journey start?
Yeah, I grew up on an orchard. I was very much a little country girl. I was actually telling someone the other day, like I remember Mum used to sort of say, like, we weren't allowed to leave the house until 7 a.m. Like we wake up at 5, we want to be out there riding the go-karts and the motorbikes and whatnot. But obviously there is an acceptable hour to be doing that when you've got neighbors. So I grew up on that orchard, and I guess slightly sad story, but also it's brought me to where I am. I thought I was getting fat between like intermediate and high school, and so I just ran a lap around my orchard every day. And then I entered, I think it was like school sports, a 3K one morning. My first year at high school was always really competitive. So there was always that. I always did sports. And I, did the 3K and didn't realize until maybe the next day or two that I'd broken the record by a minute, which was, I didn't really know what that meant. Like at the time I thought, oh, you run, you just put one foot in front of the other. You don't train or go to anything like that. You just do it. And just through that, so the sports coordinator at the time had a group of high school athletes that he was coaching, not very many, but there was one girl in particular who was really good. She had, I think, had the New Zealand 800-meter record at the time, and he just wanted someone to train with her. So he was like, oh, we'll just get Laura along. So kind of went along, and I didn't necessarily love the running, but I loved the group that they had, and it was more the social aspect and being around these people that were really good at what they were doing was what kept me coming back. So again, like very much at the beginning, yes, there's a little bit of a like obviously body image issue kind of there, but it was the social side that really got me stuck into it and staying there.
Yeah, and I think that's an important message, and we will touch on maybe a little bit more of that body image and Red S later on, if that's okay with you.
Yep.
So you kind of get through high school, get yourself started, and then you head off in the Big Bird overseas. So we've had mixed, I guess, stories about people who have gone to the US. Tom's one of them, and others. What was your experience in terms of getting ready to go and then getting over there, and how did you find it?
Yeah, look, I took things way too seriously in high school, but in saying that, it's probably why I went over. That girl that I mentioned that was in that training group, she was maybe 3 years older than me, and went over to Tulsa first. So I was hearing things from her experience, and although she didn't love her experience, she ended up transferring to Hawaii, which is great.
Why
I was
not?
like,
Yeah.
yeah, I know. I was like, well, that sounds amazing. I was like, okay, I really, really, really want to go. Maybe I don't want to go to Tulsa, but I'd like to go somewhere. And I was just so like one-minded. I was like, that's my only option. I'm not staying in New Zealand. Typical, like, I hate New Zealand. There's nothing here. It's such a hole. At 15 or whatever age it was. So I was just tunnel vision. Like, that is what I'm doing. And that's probably where a wee bit more of the Red S kind of stuff came in, where I wasn't fueling myself well at all. And I got faster, and obviously there was training and the training element to that, and like pushing myself every day. Like a rest day wasn't a thing in my head, and going easy wasn't a thing. So yeah, but like over time, I guess I made a World Juniors team right before I went, and I think at 15 I started reaching out to schools. At the time, there was the website NZ Run. I don't know if you guys remember that or not, but there was a list of colleges.
Yep.
Yeah, there was a list of colleges that had Kiwi athletes at, and so I just reached out to a bunch of people that had a Facebook account, and I was like, I think Kim Smith was the one with Providence. I was like, hi, I'm Laura. This is what I've done. I'd really like to go to the States. What's your thoughts on Providence? Her first thing was like, I'm biased. Come here. Here's Ray's contact details. So it was kind of a no-brainer from there. And like I had great communication with Ray all the way through till me actually getting there. I did have a really, well, I guess long injury in my last year of high school, and probably was, I didn't think so at the time, but maybe looking back, I maybe was a little bit depressed because I was like, no, that was my only plan was the States, and now I'm injured and I can't run. Came back from that, which was cool, and ran a World Junior qualifier, and that was basically the tick box, cool, you can come to Providence now. And yeah, so when I got there, like I just embraced everything. I think I was very naive to like what it would be like. I basically was like, oh, there's going to be sororities and football and everything that I see in the movies. I didn't do a visit. I'd barely ever left New Zealand. Like my parents don't really travel overseas. Like running is what basically took me around New Zealand and then also took me overseas. So yeah, that was kind of my experience. And I just loved America. I'm biased because I had a really, really epic experience the entire time, and there's many reasons for that. And I just recommend it to everyone. Like you can't really match a free education and like some of the best competition in the world. Like I look back at a couple of photos. I think it might have been maybe the year that we won NCAA cross country in 2013, and like you see the start line, and I'm like, you look at all the people that are there now, and I'm like, I can literally list like 10 to 15 Olympians on that very front line right there. Like it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Mm. And so, oh, you got a question?
No, no, no.
I was going to say, and do you feel like your personality helped you thrive in that environment? Or did
Yes.
you have to learn to be a certain way to cope with it?
Yeah, no, I think my personality, yeah, I think not necessarily my personality, because I think lots of different personalities, depending on the team, they mix well or don't. It just sort of depends. I think it was more my attitude going in. I think I was just ready to be kind of like, I guess, a small fish in a big pond and just push myself. And I think I've probably always had that kind of attitude. Like, I love going to Europe now because, I'm just chasing. And I want to just push myself that way. I think I get the best out of myself when that is happening. So I think it's more the attitude going in and not necessarily the personality. I think that's a big thing to think about. Like, I know some people really struggle when they go over because, 18, they might have a boyfriend or a girlfriend they've left behind. Like, if you're constantly thinking about back home, it's already hard enough as it is. You're halfway around the world as like a young person who is trying to figure out who they are. So I also think what Providence did for me was like make me become more of who I am as well. It's a really interesting time in your life, I suppose. You're 18 to 22, 24, and you're just trying to figure out everything. And, you still don't figure it out even at my age. So I think, yeah, not personality. I think it's more your attitude going in and just being a little bit kind of self-aware of yourself and others. So, yeah.
I think that's pretty good advice.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you have any because I know from my experience freshman year, I didn't find it too bad. I always found a lot of other people that I've talked to and other Kiwi athletes and internationals that have gone over always, they come in with this mentality that they have to prove something in their freshman year. And that often, it works for some people, but it often backfires, and that's when they really struggle. So like when I ever get asked about it, I would always just tell someone like, go over with basically what you've just said, like an open mind, try to do your best. But I always feel like nowadays it might even be slightly better to, I guess, know your place in the team. Like, don't go chasing those seniors and juniors every workout and trying to,
Yeah.
beat them in the workouts, because it happens a lot. But yeah, if you did anything differently? I mean, it sounded like you had a very good experience yourself, but
Yeah, and look, I did a lot of research. I think that's a big thing. Like, Kiwis are really good at helping each other out too. So I think, I spoke to Kim Smith. I actually ended up, because I was at World Juniors at the time, which was in Canada. She was like, "Why don't you just come like straight to Providence, just stay with me prior to going to school, and that way I'm not flying home and then flying back and spending an extra $2,000-3,000." And then that in itself was really valuable for me because I used to drill myself. And I remember going on a run with her, like, a couple weeks out from starting, and I was two-stepping her. This is Kim Smith, who is like, she's a phenomenal athlete, and I think very underrated, or not, sorry, underrated, but like a lot of people didn't really know her as much because she did most of her, amazing things overseas, and they didn't necessarily get to see her run in New Zealand. But I was two-stepping her. What was I thinking? And I remember one day she was like, "All right," and just absolutely drilled me in a run. And at the end was like, "Laura, you cannot do that. When you start, like, these girls will hate you." And so, and like that in itself, I remember that so clearly because I was like, "Oh, okay." So it was just one of those things where you just learn a lot because you can't do that either. So I think, yeah, going in, I wouldn't do necessarily anything different, but in terms of advice, just like do your research. Like, so many Kiwis are over there now. You probably have heard stories about coaches, who's good, who's not. But my biggest thing is play the long game. Oh my God. Like, you've got, and I feel like I can say this, like, you have so many years of options. Like, obviously there's always circumstances and things change, and like, the biggest one is usually finances and career and everything. So I just think you need to want to, like, maybe win an NCAA title or be an All-American in your senior year, not necessarily in your first year, because sometimes it takes a lot to transition, takes a lot to like be used to being away from home, like racing, getting used to a coach and different personalities. Like there's so much change, so much change. So I think, yeah, you really do need to play the long game. But I do think you just need to be a little bit wary and just know, I guess, know the good stuff and the stuff that you have been taught that works. So yeah, there's a lot to it.
That's really good advice.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
I just want to touch on that. When someone like Kim Smith reaches out and says, "Hey, come stay with me," what does that do for your confidence level? To have someone like that reaching out and I guess taking you under a wing to make sure you are successful.
Yeah, I mean, I was like stoked because I was like, oh, cool, like this woman's amazing. But I also didn't realize how good she was. And I think,
Yeah.
like, again, and that's because I'd only seen her maybe race once in Auckland, like, and I was relatively new and oblivious to a lot of running things at the time. But I look now, even like looking at now, like all these records that are only just being broken of hers, and she used to run those when she had no super shoes, like none of that stuff. I'm like, man, she's phenomenal. So I don't know.
Yeah,
It's one of those things. Yeah.
Oh, is that like it used to be a honey sandwich and a glass of water and some New Balance 1400s and away you went.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
think we can both say that we've raced in both eras though.
Yep.
Pre and post. Not that I'm anywhere near Kim Smith's sort of level. So you get through college. Do you have some highlights of that kind of spring to mind?
Oh, there's so many. Yeah, I learned a lot the whole time, but I was training partners with like Emily Sisson and stuff, and we co-captained the 2013 cross country team to a championship. That was probably the hardest season of my life. It's probably why I don't really want to do cross country ever again. Nothing will ever trump that ever. There's just something about, like, I guess the two of us are very, very different people, and I think that worked as co-captains because some people could go to her because they just related a little bit more to her, or some people would come to me because that's just sort of how it worked. And we sort of allowed that to foster throughout the team, and it was really cool having someone there. And like there was three of us that were really, I guess, up there and sort of ranked quite highly, which was awesome. But we also had, one of my really good friends who I caught up with when I was in Melbourne. She ended up being our number 5, who came through. Like, she only ran 3 races that season and just had a phenomenal 3 races every single time. And we also had a freshman, so it was quite a range of people. But I think doing something together as a team is just so different than doing it individually. And I think that's probably why, like, I love our Bays group, is because, especially relays, I know we do get a bit like loud, which I think is fine.
I'm here for it. The louder the better.
Yeah, and it's just fun, and like doing it with people, it's a lot more fun. Like, I've obviously loved my Europe trips and everything the last couple years, and like racing and everything, but I'm doing those so by myself. And so there's some like times you're like, oh, it'd be great if I had some people with me right now. So yeah, and then even if, like, if you're with a group and you have a crap race, there's just bigger things going on and you can be happy for others. So it's kind of, yeah, I guess that's just always been me.
I mean, I don't know if many people listening will appreciate how hard that title is. Like, if you haven't been over there, you don't understand the real intricacies of running.
NCAA title in cross country is.
Yeah.
I think we explained it the other day on a run, and to even make NCAA's cross country is like qualifying for your nation.
Yeah.
Yep.
At like a marathon world champs or something like that.
Yeah, and then like
that's ridiculous.
And then to win it, like, you have to have top 5 people of your 7 on the start line running pretty good, if not their best ever, on that one day.
Yeah.
And like, that is so hard to do. After a long season, you've got injuries that pop out of nowhere, you've got illnesses because you're coming into like winter, like, and everyone's studying, and you're around lots of other college kids that are, they're just partying, and they're probably sick, and that might be the thing that gets you sick because you went to class one day. Like, there's just so many different factors that come into it. So like getting to that national champs is obviously a big thing, and then like performing well and then winning is just, yeah, again, one of the hardest things. Also weird to deal with. I think on the day I was in Indiana, negative 20 degrees Celsius. We put like, we had olive oil all over ourselves, and I still felt like my feet were going to come off and like with frostbite at the finish. We had 2 of our girls in like the medical team, like just mental. So yeah.
That'll scar you from cross country.
Yeah, I can see why.
See why you don't want to run
I mean,
cross
I might run cross country now and start complaining about my ankle. Yeah. So you have a good experience. You learn a lot about yourself and about the sport, and then you come home. And quite a few of the people that we've talked to, that's the hardest part. As you come out of this group environment, New Zealand's not specifically really set up to welcome athletes back out of that system. You get sort of, I don't want to say dumped out on your own, but it
You do.
essentially sort of is. Yeah, you do. Okay, you'll say it.
Do. Yeah.
And you don't have your, I guess your bank account's not full. You've got to start using this degree that you've acquired if you've managed to do that. So how did you find sort of coming back?
I was shit scared. At the time, my running.
Good honesty.
Yeah. I like, I'd also had this, running had been everything to me since I was probably 14, 15. It was probably when it started to become like a big thing. And you hear stories like everyone's like doesn't necessarily want you to go to the States because they think that you're going to burn out and your coach is going to destroy you. Not true. Sometimes it happens, sure, but yeah. And then you see everyone that comes home quits or turns to crap or never runs as fast as they ever did before. And I came home and that happened. I was okay for probably the first year, just because I was coming off of fitness from the States, but then I got injured and it was really hard for me to get back into the same kind of training schedule. Like I was still being coached by Ray and he was great about everything, but it was just really hard for me to do it. Transitioning to full-time work, trying to make friends at a slightly older age, and you're in Hawke's Bay and there's, it's kind of a retirement village a little bit. Like I love the place, absolutely love it, but there's not a lot of young people. And I just got to a point where I was like, I'd get given a schedule and I couldn't do it, like couldn't do the workouts because I'd skipped a day or I just didn't have the motivation there. And then I got more injured, sort of. Well, I'd moved up to Auckland actually because I got a job at Hockey New Zealand, and I was like, great, I'm gonna like be able to run more, I'm gonna have friends, it's gonna be awesome. But then I had this knee injury that like I basically couldn't run more than once every 3 weeks. It would just, I'd go for a run and then it would be so sore and it's really swollen. And no one could seem to figure out what happened. I feel like a lot of people kind of gave up on me. The sports doc that I went to see was like, oh, you've probably got arthritis. We'll send you to, I can't remember the term, can't remember the term anyway. So I went and saw that person, like, oh, yep, here's some drugs. And I was like, but this knee pain I'm getting doesn't like equate to what I'm aware of as arthritis. And at that point, I hadn't necessarily given up, but I just was, I guess, trying to figure out what life meant without being able to run, which it wasn't even I could run and things just weren't going well, was I literally couldn't run much. So that was really hard. And I guess when I first had come back too, I'd sort of asked for support. Like I was like, look, I don't think I need much. Like my coach was great and he's still giving me plans and everything, but I just would, can someone help me with a strength conditioning program? And then I never heard anything back, not even a reply. So that was kind of my experience of coming home. And then as you said before, like you just feel like you're so disconnected and it's hard. So that was, I guess that was my 3 years after that.
Which sounds, it must be so difficult to go from, you come off the NCAA title, you kind of wrap up, and because you live together, right? Basically, the whole team is, you see each other twice a day, you study together, you're in the same, housing, whatever. And then they all go back to their sort of American lives or wherever they're kind of from, and you come back down to the bottom of the world. You're not even in the same time zone anymore. I guess you try and maybe reconnect with a few friends from school, but everyone's kind of grown up 4 or 5 years later.
Some have
And
kids,
so,
and I'm like not even thinking about kids.
so I can see, for anyone listening, how important it is to plan each step, really well. And like you said, research and kind of have some structures in place. And I know that there's a couple of coaches around the country at the moment trying to have some better systems in place for when, I guess, these young people come back, so they don't feel like they are being dumped. When does Bay's Babes turn up? So
Yeah.
timestamp that for me. Yeah.
Yeah, so it kind of, I guess when I moved up to Auckland, Paul had reached out. I don't know why or like where he got my contact details from, but he had reached out and asked if I wanted to help with 9 to 5s. So I guess maybe he had heard that I did stuff in events, because that's what I did quite a fair bit when I was in college as a grade assistant, and then worked at Sport Hawke's Bay for a couple of years, doing a bunch of kind of community, but also a little bit of events as well. And then obviously my job when I went to hockey was, yeah, I mean, it's sport. It's always revolved around events. And I was like, yeah, sure. So kind of started working with him a little bit with 9 to 5s, just helping him out. And then I was still injured at the time, eventually got a second opinion, and this surgeon was like, oh, this will be fixed with a quick keyhole surgery and away you go. I was like, are you serious? I've just not been running for a whole like year and a half. And this was,
Sounds like New Zealand.
I was like, I mean, great, but this is really frustrating. So I at that point, I'd kind of like, I was living with my best friend who had a 2-year-old, which was amazing to spend a lot of time with them and like do all that kind of stuff. And I guess try and figure out who I was without running. And yeah, ended up having the surgery. I was actually supposed to have it like the day after we went into lockdown. And so obviously got pushed out. And I look back now, I'm like, I don't know how I didn't go psycho when that was announced. Like, I think I've just come to the terms of, okay, what's going to happen? There's bigger problems in the world, whatever. So during like the 6 weeks, I think it was between when I was supposed to have it and when I actually got it, I guess trained for surgery to make all my muscles really strong around that sort of area. And then after that, just kind of gradually got back and had asked Paul if he would coach me. And at that point, Hayley Green had come back from the States too, who I ran with or ran against a few times when I was in college, because she was at Stony Brook. And we sort of started hanging out with a couple of the girls in that group that Paul had already. There was only like 3 or 4, and like Esther obviously was there, and she was a long-term competitor of mine. And a few others. And then we were like, one day we just decided we'd go away for a weekend to Omaha, and we were like, all right, let's just start this like group. Like, why not? Like at the time we were tossing up on names and we just couldn't figure it out, because like, it was Bays obviously, and Bays used to be Bays Cougars, and I was like, we can't really do Bays Cougars, can we? And so there was no other, like, it was just, I was like, oh, I don't really want to do like Bays Babes, because like, you've got like the Boss Babes in the States, or the Bowerman Babes at the time. And I was like, screw it. Like, we'll figure this out along the way. We'll just see what happens. And then like it really quickly grew just through like, I don't know, just Instagram kind of posts, and people being like, oh, can I come along and run? We're like, yeah, of course. Like, we're never going to turn anyone away. Just come along, see if you enjoy it. And yeah, over time we've built to like, I don't know how many, maybe like 30 odd women. And then we have some people come in and out every now and then. And yeah, that's kind of how it's come about.
So Paul had this to say when I asked him about Bays Babes.
Yeah.
He said, from the time Laura joined the training group and led the social media, the squad has continued to grow. I have a lot to thank Laura for, as she has been a huge reason behind the success of our squad. The younger girls in the squad really do look up to her, and the impact she has on the wider group is immense. It will be a sad day when she decides to move on from running, but hopefully she will consider coaching alongside me in the future. Something that we probably need to have a chat about.
Yep.
Is that kind of sum it up how you feel about the group as well?
Yeah, I'd say so. I don't think I ever quit running. I don't think runners ever quit. And I think I'm one of those lifers where I'll just always be there.
We'll be battlers in the 60 plus category, man.
Yeah, God. Oh, yeah. I think it's just one of those things. I will always be in the sport at some point. What that looks like, I don't know. I've got lots of ideas, lots of opinions too, probably. And yeah, I'd like to keep this going. Like, my other big thing with this group is I wish I had it when I first came back from the States. And that was kind of one of the goals. I mean, at the end of the day, we were just a bunch of friends that wanted to hang out and still train and still try and be good. And it's worked, which is really cool. And so, like, a lot of us have become really, really close friends. You know, there's been weddings and babies now, and it's epic. But the other thing too was just trying to provide people an option to come home, because like it's so hard to like make it in the States. Like 1% is probably going to get like contracts or whatever and be able to do that stuff. So at least if people want to come home, they don't feel like their career is going to completely tank. And now what's really cool is in the last couple of years, we have had a couple girls come back from the States and jump back in, and I'm really excited for them because there's a couple that I think are going to be really, really good. So I just think that's really fun. It's an option. Yeah, just making it just more accessible, and also just working together. I feel like when I first came home, everyone was just in silos and no one like really helped each other out. I'm like, I know we're all competing against one another, but like, was it iron sharpens iron? Is that the term? Like it
sounds like something I'd say, so it's we'll go with it.
Yeah.
There's a whole podcast episode of mannerisms like that.
Yeah.
I think it's about number 36.
Yeah. So that's my philosophy, I suppose.
No, I think it's great. And the greatest thing about that is it's athlete led, right? So you've got Paul pulling strings in the background, I guess, in a way, but at the forefront as a group of athletes showing younger athletes that, and a bit like Tanner and Ruth in the last couple of weeks. It's like, hey, you're probably going to knock me off at some point, but I want to help you do that so that the sport's in a better place than what it was when I was doing it at my top level. So I think I definitely commend you for that. Before we leave Paul and head on to some dirt from Bridget, who's, as I understand, one of your you're one of your training partners. Actually, to be fair, I think if I had got her on the phone, I feel like I could have got a bit more out of her. But we've got the marathon next weekend, so I ran out a little bit of time.
Probably a good thing.
Yeah. So I'll just read this from Paul before we wrap that up, before we come back to the World Indoor Selection. But he just said, Laura is a real professionally unprofessional athlete. She does all the little things right. Brings protein shakes to training, pre-training run activations. Her success while maintaining a full-time working week and balancing a busy life is a testament to her career. So it sounds like you guys have a pretty special bond over the last few years.
Yeah, he's vastly different to my previous two coaches, but I think that works really, really well given where I'm at, or where a lot of us are at in our life. Like, yeah, he, I guess, like encourages the fun. It's kind of cool. Or like, oh, what are you guys doing this weekend? And Paul, even at road relays, he'll be the one to be like, oh, you're going home already. It's like, Paul, you've given us a long run tomorrow.
Been there firsthand.
Yeah, so I think, he's been amazing. And like, obviously I'd never ever pictured myself running 1500s and having like his expertise and like, him actually doing the thing for a long time when he was in it. It's really cool. So yeah, he's amazing human. I don't know how he coaches all of us women also. So I have a lot of respect for Paul. He's pretty cool.
Nice. All right, here's some dirt. Go for it, Turbo.
Ooh. Well, there seems to be a running theme that you love a typical day at the beach.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But Paul seems to think that maybe spending a little bit too much time in the sun can not really help you out sometimes. So Bridget's got here a few different questions. I'm just trying to pick some favorites. She's asked how many books she has read this year and what's her favorite genre.
Yeah, I think I'm up to about 19, which is quite a lot given it's April 3rd.
Yeah, that's really good. I'm sitting on a solid 0.
Look, I used to be like, I could never sit still, and I think over the last like 4 or 5 years, I've realized how important recovery is, and there's only so much sleeping you can do. So got really into reading books, and obviously, there's trendy like Fourth Wing fantasy series, so I read a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, she has written theory SMUT at the end there in brackets.
Yep.
Another one that has come up is your board game stash.
Yep. It's pretty impressive.
So
pretty
sounds like it's a family thing. Tell us
Yeah,
more about
my fiance, he loves games of any sort. He's a big gamer, like I guess computers, but we also play a lot of board games. Yeah, I think we went away to New Year's and I sent a group message to a few of the people. I was like, "What do you guys want? Here's like 30 options. Please let me know because I don't know. I've got a lot of favorites." So yeah, they're just fun. I think again, like it's just fun to play games with people. Don't need to take life so seriously, and also it's a really good you are resting kind of, but you're just having fun.
I think she'd resonate really well with our podcast yesterday on how unserious I am with her.
Yes. Tom and I are probably the least serious, unserious people.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder how we even function as a company, but it's okay.
And your relationship with trail running.
Oh yeah, no thanks.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it's summed up. Looks at a trail and rolls her ankle, basically, is what Bridge has written.
Yeah, I sometimes it's even a piece of concrete that's completely flat and I'll roll my ankle. Yeah, I don't know.
Is
I
that
just
fair
roll
come
it a
from
lot.
cross country, or is that just?
Well, I never really did it in the States, like cross country. Like I was fine. So I don't know. It's just being home and I don't know. I love running fast. So like you can't really like run fast on a trail necessarily. And because I roll my ankle so many times, I'm more prone to doing it. So yeah, if it's a nice flat trail with no bumps, absolutely. But if there's any form of anything other than that, no.
And one last one. This is probably.
This is out the gate.
This is digging a little deep. I don't know. Bridget's done well here. She might hate me for it. But she's got, when she was younger, early high school, maybe, was sent off for a run. And you and your friend would come back, or
I know.
on this run, you would go to the dairy and buy some lollies and then slap your faces to make it look like you've been out for a run. How long did this trend go on for?
So I get the training partner that I said was the reason why I'd kind of been asked to join this group. She hated training, and never wanted to go for a run. But we'd go out. She's like, "All right, let's go." We'd go down this middle of the street to Taradale, and then at the time it was when like some of the ball photos would be out in some of the like photo shops or something. And so we'd look through there, we'd go buy some lollies. She's like, "All right, on the run home, we'd literally be slapping our face so it looked red as if we'd finished a run." And that was our run that day.
I mean, that's amazing.
So there you go. You don't have to start very seriously at all.
So when I read that, I was like, that is gold. That should go in a book somewhere. So I want to bring us sort of back to the present day, and sort of some of the things that have happened over the last 6 months. So you obviously get back on track. You do phenomenally well domestically for the last, I guess, 3 seasons, 4 seasons.
Yeah, 5 years.
5 seasons. I'm trying to do the math in my head. I'm getting old. You go to Europe a few times, and I feel like this may be a little bit where our system kind of lets us down. And Paul's made a comment here, which I might choose not to read out in case it gets him in trouble, so I'll leave it.
I'll probably say it anyway.
Yeah. So you do the 1,500 5K double at Nationals. Very few have managed to do that. What goes into, and Paul's got here, your work schedule and life schedule is absolutely mental. You're on the train at 6:30 a.m. to get in. You're running before you go to work. You're working 8 hours a day. You're doing double days 3 or 4 times a week, 3 gym sessions. You're managing to sleep in an altitude tent and see the physio. Does that sound about right?
Yeah,
I'll paraphrase that a wee bit.
No, I did that up until probably 2 years ago, and then I had asked work if they'd allow me to go part-time. I said to them, I was like, "Look, I'm happy to do whatever. It might not be something I enjoy, but I just want to, at the time I was 30 and I was like, I need to see, I just know I can do better, but I want to put myself in the best possible position. I still have bills to pay, unfortunately." So yeah, went part-time about 2 years ago just to be able to not necessarily run more, but just handle things better and recover better. So, and like, although sometimes it still feels like I work 8 hours a day, like it's a little bit less now, but it's still, I still coach virtually too via kind of through Femi is how that started. And yeah, so yeah, it's a lot, but I feel like I've got a pretty good lifestyle, and I've always been one to try and fit a lot of things in. I'm getting better at saying no. But I also really like the fact I have something outside of running to do, and it's also just been really interesting working at an NSO while also being an athlete in a different sport. Yeah.
Yeah, so you head down to Dunedin, down to the famous Kelly.
Yep.
What was the plan for that weekend? Did you think, was it, I guess nothing's ever, secure, but what was kind of the mentality going into that weekend?
I'd done it before. Like I'd done the 5K 1500 double a couple years before that. And look, I train like a 5K 10K runner. I do high mileage. We don't tend to touch on heaps of speed compared to other 1500 meter runners probably, but that's just always the way that I've done it. So the 5K, like, that's what I did in college, like for years. Like I don't love the 5K. It's great when you're feeling good, but I've had probably 50-50 of great runs versus not great runs. So yeah, and
that's still a great average.
Yeah.
yeah, and like it's a national championship. Like I was like I'm not trying to push it here. So like as much as people probably thought I should have gone to the front because I technically have the fastest PB in the field, that just wasn't really the plan for that weekend anyway. Again, I'm trying to play the long game this year. Like if I want to qualify for Tokyo, it's in September. Like there's no point being like at your best in March. So yeah.
So you win those two, and then Paul's written here, the recent selection to the World Indoors was a bit of a shock.
Yeah.
And this was never on the radar with our focus on the European summer. We were only made aware of the opportunity 2 weeks out. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So preparation for this event was very short, however, an awesome opportunity that we were both thrilled to have received. A great reward for all that hard work. And you messaged me as you were heading through customs in China when I was asking about the podcast. I mean, what's that 2 weeks like?
Well, it's kind of crazy because I was driving somewhere and I had a missed call from Kat at Athletics New Zealand, and I think that was maybe like a day before going down to Dunedin. And so anyway, I called her back and I was like, hi. At first I was like, oh my God, have I failed a drug test or something? Like, why am I getting a call? Like, there was nothing on my radar at this point. So she's like, how do you feel about World Indoors? I was like, I'm not fast enough. Like, the policy had come out and it had been 4:02 something. I was like, well, realistically, as much as I would love to run 4:02, at that time, that just probably was going to be pushing it way too much. She's like, well, actually, you're ranked quite high, and we've been indicated that it's going to be a relatively large roll down this year, so there's a good chance you'll actually make it. I was like, oh, let me chat to Paul. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, I was planning on running at the ACA night in Auckland on the Wednesday, so yeah, why not? Let's go to China and run on the Saturday. So obviously you're like absolutely stoked when I found out that officially I had made that cutoff. And it was one of those kind of surreal things where you're like, especially when everyone started being like, oh, 20 years. Like, oh man. And then I was actually thinking like last week or so, I was like, it really goes by so quick. Like, 20 years of running and then it's over in like 4 minutes. Like that's pretty mental to think. But it was an epic opportunity. I think just how it all happened, like having it as a surprise rather than trying for months and months and months to qualify and then maybe being on the cusp and all that. I think it was probably the best way for it to happen. And it's just honestly given me so much more motivation to make Tokyo. Like it was, I don't know, there is something really different about wearing a black singlet. I never thought necessarily I'd feel that way, but there is. I don't know. I don't really know how to explain it, but it was really cool. Really, really cool.
And it's an awesome achievement and one of like pure resilience, I guess. I know Tom not quite yet, but I definitely know what it's like to keep trying into your early 30s and mid 30s, and to get that opportunity. And I think we were talking about it, and Kat was here, and we were talking about it was just good to see someone who's tried so hard and done so much for the sport, not just yourself, to get that opportunity. And I think for young girls in particular, to have that, I guess, that focal point, that centrifugal kind of space doing that means that they're going to go, hey, I can do what Laura's done. And the sport doesn't grow if we don't have people like yourself getting those opportunities and performing, performing really well. Before we crack on to some Instagram questions that I got, I want to touch on the Red S thing. Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you want to, maybe just for people that don't quite understand what it is, do you maybe just want to explain, I guess, kind of what it stands for, and then kind of how it featured, I guess, in your early career?
Yeah, so REDI stands for Relative Energy Deficient in Sport. And I guess in a nutshell, because there's still more research going on and terms change and everything, is essentially you're either under eating or doing too much and not getting enough fuel. And so your body basically goes into sort of survival mode and it shuts off your menstrual cycle. That's one of the bigger sort of ones. Obviously, that's for women. It does happen in men too. And I think there's more research probably happening around that too. But yeah, so for me, that sort of happened around 15, 16, probably more 16 to 18, I suppose. I just, you started to get addicted to like feeling a little bit smaller and then running faster. And it's just this really bad cycle of under eating and watching what you're eating. And I guess a lot of psychological issues there, but mainly around body image for women is kind of where it kicks off.
Yeah, I felt like in that time, there was a lot around the Oregon Project flow track. It just kind of turned up in terms of like what they were communicating. I mean, we're the same age, so we're kind of living through the same,
Yep.
And it was this lighter makes you faster, like mentality. I guess just maybe a comment if, parents have got young ladies who they're a little bit concerned about, coaches who haven't dealt with something like that before. Have you got any advice for them or something that you'd say to those people?
Please educate yourself. Like, I just think for me, like it's, if you know why you're doing what you're doing, or, the goal that you're after, there's got to be a lot of education around the right way to do that. And for women, I think that's even more important, especially young girls. Like, we reach our maximum bone density at 30. So if you're destroying your body from like 15 to 20, and then you only, kind of get out of those sort of habits at 25, you've lost 10 or so years of like trying to build that maximum bone strength to then last you till you're 80. I know you're not thinking about when you're 80, when you're 15 and all that kind of stuff, but I just think if parents can educate themselves so they can be aware of what their children are doing, but also make sure those girls know, because at the end of the day, there's only so much parents can do, especially when they leave home. So I just think and that's why I love what Femi has done with trying to just spread more awareness around this, and like just women actually knowing what their menstrual cycle is, how it works, how that might apply to being active. And there's so many people that still don't know, and like it's crazy to think, because that's what, half the population of the world.
Yeah. I think it's a great message, and like you said, it does affect some men, but I think for young ladies, like you said, there's the health implications later in life. So if we can, not this for me and Tom to talk about, but I think you're doing a great job with Femi and the girls and Esther and Lydia and stuff, trying to get it out there and educate these young women on, being healthy and power and strength is just as important as, or more important than light and fast, right? Like it's your
Absolutely.
life.
I actually, to be honest, I train a lot, but like my strength training, I think, is why I've been able to like have somewhat of a kick still. And so, and it's really cool feeling strong. So like, yeah, I think there's a lot people can learn, but yeah, I think just education is power. So, well, knowledge is power, as people say, but yeah.
Cool. Okay, thanks for that. I know that's not always the easiest subject to talk about, but you did it very well. So I got a couple of questions here from Instagram. The first one is, did Ashley Aitken ever convince you to ditch mixed training and have fish and chips instead? That is unbelievably detailed.
Sounds like it's
She
true
might have. So
story.
Ashley Aiken is the girl that I was slapping my face to make sure that we looked like we'd run. Yeah. I wouldn't
I
be
love
surprised
that.
if she did. I don't remember fish and chips, but I do remember lollies and not running. So yeah.
Okay. About doing World Cross Country mixed team relay, Georgie and Maya said that they are interested on the coffee club.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually talked to Maya about that. I was like, nah, that would be maybe the one time I would potentially say yes to doing cross country. A relay team, it's really fun. How cool would that be?
I've a pretty good team.
Yeah.
That'd be a very good team. And then one question here: what does a typical hard day of training look like for you in terms of nutrition and recovery?
Yeah, good question. I guess I have most of my weeks look relatively similar in like a kind of big build phase. Tuesdays are usually a big day for me. So morning, I wake up. I like to, although I don't work on a Tuesday, I like to still run with the group. So I kind of use Tuesday as like this is my training work day kind of thing, if that makes sense. So I still wake up at probably 5:30 to I give myself about half an hour to eat, have a coffee. So that'll usually be like 2 bits of toast with like peanut butter, honey. Might have something else if I'm still a bit hungry. Sometimes a date, which I've been told is pretty almost like the equivalent of a piece of toast. So yeah, that coffee, I love coffee and I probably drink too much of it, but yep. And then
Don't we all?
yeah, where I live, it usually takes me like 30 to 40 minutes to get to where I'm going most places. So that's there. We sort of start at 6:45, do a big session. I usually try and eat something within like 20 to 30 minutes. It's usually a protein shake with some kind of carbs. I also usually take creatine a little bit in that as well. Sit down for an hour, usually with bridge, have a coffee, a little bit more food, and then we usually do a big gym session. And then I go home. On the way, I'm usually eating as well, and then get home and have a bit more substantial meal. And that kind of takes me to like 1 p.m., depending how much we sort of piss around in the gym and chatting. And then, yeah, another run in the afternoon, usually half an hour, quite easy. And then dinner. So, yeah, it's a lot of just like, eat, rest, recover, work hard.
Rinse and repeat, but have
Yeah.
fun, right?
Yeah.
So last question: what do you make of the state of women's distance running in New Zealand right now?
We're getting there. Like I guess it's hard because I think this season felt a little bit different because like Becky wasn't there and usually I'd have her at least and we'd be sort of pulling the fields along with us. I think we have a long way to go, but we're making progress. I think the tricky part is, and maybe we'll see some change over the next couple of years, is we do have a lot of girls going up to the States, and I highly encourage that. So, but there is a hole there. And so maybe I'm hoping over the next few years, girls will be coming back from the States while others are going. So it starts to like build up our fields. I think it's pretty depressing that we cannot get more than one straight final heat for an 800 at nationals. Like that is a joke. Come on. It's 2 laps. How can we not get more than like fill those lanes and then get heats and everything? I was really proud of like 2 years ago, we finally had heats in the 1500. Like why? So yeah, I think that really kills me inside sometimes when our fields are that low. I know it's hard, like getting places and all of that, but yeah, we have a lot of work to do.
I think there needs to be some sort of like, I mean, it's kind of defeats the purpose of the question, but getting Aussies over as well and vice versa, like
Well,
get them over to those national champs, like fill the fields up both ways.
yeah, definitely. But the side note to that too, and this frustrated me with Wanganui, I suppose. I'd never planned on doing Cook's Classic. And then I saw the fields. I was like, oh damn, that would have been really cool. But then there was no pacer. Like you have girls that good, and there's no pacer to make it fast. And that's been an issue for me every single time I've raced here. And like a huge shout out to the girls who have put their hand up and said, look, I'll go for like a lap if I can. That's better than nothing. But like the fact we can't get a decent pacer to do that kind of stuff for some of the races I've been doing is that kills me inside. And so I look forward to Europe, which sucks because I would prefer to just run at home all the time, but unfortunately that's not the reality.
We have some things to work on, but I feel like, with your group and others, hopefully you get the bigger the base, the top of the spiky, the top of the pyramid. And, I still think Harriers and athletics still has this sort of like elitism complex that I don't know is overly welcoming. As a whole, I definitely think there's pockets of welcoming, welcomeness, but it's, I haven't been to a Colgate Games in a while, so I don't know what the split of field is like and what the drop-off's like, but I think definitely as a sport, I think we were told we were tier 2, so something's not working right.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, and that's what we struggle with a little bit at Night of Fives. Like we've really tried to, and we've still got a lot of work to do there too, is have some other options for kind of like run clubs. Like reality is running has this huge boom and like events are selling out left, right, and center. Why are our athletics fields so low? I know it is a different type of running, but like surely there's something that filters through there. And I think we've seen it a little bit with our group. Like we've managed to get a few girls who otherwise never would have run track, which is cool. But we need more groups doing that. We need just people, I don't know, just allowing some other events that don't feel too elitist. And I know that can be hard and there's a lot of work to do there. But yeah, in terms of women's running, I just want to kind of go back to that. I think it's absolutely epic seeing Maya run phenomenal, like Kim, Hannah coming through, like all of that. I think that's all really positive. It's just how do we then get that kind of in the New Zealand scene?
Yeah,
I think the work you're doing will hopefully rub off, and you will see that. This might not be in our career time. We might be the one standing there with the photo finish equipment by the time that happens.
Yeah, I guess again it's the long game, right?
It is absolutely in more ways than one. So before we try and land this awesome, I think it's been just over an hour. It's amazing how fast an hour goes. Is there anything else you want to add? Anything you want people to know about Laura or the things coming up?
No, I just think probably one of the biggest things I have taken into this last sort of 4 years phase is just, I know it's all great and well to like win things, but I think the biggest mindset or the biggest kind of thing you can do in terms of your own running, no matter where you're at, is just like be really curious to see how good you can be. And if you feel like you haven't quite tapped into your potential, just go for it. Like, later on in life, you just don't want to regret that. And I think that's what has allowed me to get to where I am the last 4 years. And that's sort of the mindset I've had. So look, I would hope others would do that too. And if all I can do is encourage like 3 or 4 girls in their mid-20s to be like, yeah, I still got it, or I can still do this, then I think that's a huge success on my part. But yeah, other than that, I think that's probably it in terms of my future. I guess this year, the big goal is just trying to qualify for Tokyo. It's going to be really hard. Everyone would do it if it was easy. It's not. So yeah, if there's anyone in Auckland who wants to help pace my workouts listening, great. But otherwise,
it's a pretty decent.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think we're proud of you in a non-condescending way. We like watching from afar, and I think people have a better understanding of, I guess, the community and the camaraderie of our, one of our top female distance athletes and the impact that you're having on the sport in more ways than one. There's kind of 3 words you used, and that was a lot, which was fun, curiosity, and potential. And so I guess if I'm going to take away anything from the chat over the last hour, it's going to be, you want to have, it's a serious thing that we're doing, but it needs to be heaps of fun. Be curious about the people you're doing it with, the thing that you're doing, and yourself, so you learn about yourself. And then if you do those things quite well, you'll probably end up finding your potential. Is that kind of a fair way to wrap up?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So thanks heaps for the chat. You got anything to add, Tom?
No, I'll just say all the best for the upcoming races, and we're looking forward to hopefully seeing you on the start line in Tokyo.
Yeah. Go good, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.